Maybe a little bit surprised to get it. He only had 5 touches in the game. His third one was that spectacular equaliser. But did we see in that little moment just how important he is as a player to Crystal Palace?
I think you get the sense he's a good character around the dressing room as well. I mean, it shocked him getting the player of the match. It really did. But look, when you create a goal like that, and what he's done off the back of obviously the performance, with the national team. It's been an incredible turnaround, it really has. But yeah, he's got this stature about him. They play so differently. They just play to their comfort when he's up front. Very different to Eddie Nketiah, but the goal itself was absolutely incredible. And I love the fact he said he was watching the game, because sometimes as a substitution, don't get me wrong, I've been there at times when you could be a bit upset if you're not starting, but look, he understands the process. He understands it's not about tonight. Mm-hmm. And he's always monitoring the game. And I think it's really important to actually that created that goal because he was focused on the bench, not on the pitch as well.
That was an intriguing little insight, wasn't it, Jamie? Because we were all of us asking where was David Raya in that moment. He had a really strong idea because he'd been observing from the sidelines.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight his position here, the goalkeeper. Now, we're going to see this more and more in terms of goalkeepers almost becoming, not just being good on the ball, but if you look at him, he's part of the back four there, because I think that Kiwior there is almost gone to left back. Lewis Skelly moves on. So this is almost trying to sort of get your extra man, if you like, in the build-up. And I think that's fine. There's no real pressure on the ball. He can handle the ball, David Raya. That for me is fine. But that is where he sees him. He sees him now. He knows he's not in the goal. So where I do have a problem with David Raya is eventually when there's players around the ball. So still now, he's in that centre-back position. But as soon as Odegaard almost takes up that position there as another centre-back, and then Kiwior becomes your left-back, I think you've just got to get back in goal.
Do you think it's because he's got so much confidence in Odegaard as a footballer?
Yeah, of course it is. And maybe it's this thing, we're winning 2-1. It had a little bit of a feel of it second half, maybe at Arsenal. Not so much he's thinking about other things, but it's just a little bit more lax than what it maybe would have been. But I think as soon as Saliba's got another player there to play with, the goalkeeper doesn't need to be there.
He's certainly not thinking worst case scenario at this point,
he's not. But that is where Mateta's seen him. And then it's just a mess from Saliba. And it's happened a couple of times now. He was brilliant in the Burnabout, and again, lost his concentration, his focus. But then this is fantastic. And you see the goalkeeper trying to get back. And that is absolutely
I'm fascinated by the finish there, that he doesn't seem to look up, and he just, at the first possible opportunity, seems to get his shot away.
Well, as a forward, like you say, you always know and recognise spaces, and you recognise where the keeper is. He alluded that to the interview, but I mean, it's one of those where he doesn't think about it. And I think the best football with a lot of footballers these days, they tend to not think about what they're doing. It just happens in moments. And what I find interesting as well is I'm not a big fan of having a number 10. I know Odegaard's a very important player for Arsenal. At that point in the game, I think he was out of the game completely, wanted to get involved, and I think that was one thing. But also going back to Raya as well, he was a few instances that may be playing on his mind going into obviously to midweek next week. But yeah, look, Fashel tonight.
The old cliche about being, for a big man, his touch isn't bad.
And he's a really good player. Yeah, I do.
How good, Jamie? I mean,
I think that there will be other clubs. Listen, I don't like saying that because Crystal Palace, supporters understand we get upset by that, but that's a brilliant finish. And for a couple of seasons now, he's been not just a real handful, he's been a real goal-getter for Crystal Palace. And you look at him, you're thinking, OK, can he go to that sort of next level of, maybe not teams challenging for the league, but teams who are challenging for the Champions League positions? You think of sort of the teams in and around, and that's really competitive, those type of teams. You'd say Crystal Palace are a level below that, almost your typical mid-table team, really. But I think he's brilliant. I really like him as a really good player. Just a little point you mentioned there, Theo. I hadn't really noticed it so much, with it being Odegaard being back in that position. I knew it was him, but we were speaking through the game. It's something I've sort of looked at a lot with Odegaard this last season. I feel like a lot of the time, he's not in the positions he should be, which is between the lines. I think for not so much this season, I think he's had an average season, but before that, I was looking at him thinking he was almost on the level of Kevin De Bruyne, it felt to me, where he'd get the ball between the lines, he was threading things, everything was going through him. Felt like I was watching one of the best players in the Premier League. And we've done this, featured this heavily, I think, on Monday Night Football 2 or 3 times this season. He's always coming out of the danger area. He's always coming into a central midfield position, an easy position for me, where he can make nice passes, look neat and tidy, but he's not actually hurting
if you're
anybody.
the opposition team, is that where you would want him, is actually amongst his back four rather than hurting you at the top of the pitch?
Of course, but I mean, he doesn't normally go that deep, and I don't want to be too critical, because I've just seen that clip. There might be a reason why he was there that I'm not aware of, but in general, even when I'm watching them tonight, and we've watched them all season, I feel like he's always on the outside of the game looking in, when he should be in there, maybe getting less touches, but actually in a position where he can get on the half turn, he can play people through. I mean, you mentioned his goal return as well earlier on as well.
2 this season.
Yeah, for playing this position, and as well, there's a lot of competition, amongst the Premier League with the best talent, the number 10s. You would want more goals from him. You would. I get that, and I understand the point of he's that player that connects everyone, but he's got a player, Ethan Ranieri, behind him who will push him at some point. And you spoke earlier about saying that a player will only so long stay on the bench. Ethan has probably sped up his process of challenging. And this is the point for me at the start of the season when Odegaard was injured. Ethan didn't play as much at all, but I'm getting a sense now that he's pushing him. And I think Martin Odegaard at some point will realise this, and he can't just rely on being the team captain as well. But look, I just think it's one of those where it was a disappointing performance, and we spoke about performance going into a big game next week. Mikel Arteta will be pulling his hair out of that one tonight.
I think the point you make there about, I was surprised Ranieri didn't play. Sterling played, he found it tough, he has done. But we were speaking off air, what you've just mentioned in terms of, sometimes the only problem Arsenal have got with Ranieri is he plays in the same position as the best player, which is Saka. And eventually you've got to find us, one of them's got to be the number 10, probably eventually. And I think for another 12 months, they can move that around, mix it around, give Ethan a few more games, a bit more game time, but eventually it's going to be like, I want to play. And I do think one of them is going to end up being that Odegaard position in the next sort of 18 months.
Some nervy moments for the Arsenal crowd, and some exciting moments if you're watching this on Merseyside tonight, because remember, another goal at this stage was going to hand Liverpool the title. And here we go, 91st minute, and this had a couple of people squeaking in the studio, let me tell you as well. Theo, what happens here?
I mean, look, again, it's another factor that they've got to deal with. Mateta's completely the polar opposite to Eddie. I think it was going wide anyway, but it was more the problems he was causing and now putting the defenders in a different situation that they've not been used to. Because it was a game that was comfortable for both teams, but look, very nervy, I felt. And that, if you go into next week particularly, it plays on players' minds, it really does, with certain moments in games. And look, for someone like Mateta, you get the likes of some of the PSG players that can cause a lot more damage than Mateta. No disrespect to him, but look, he's very different stature. But you'll be watching that very closely and know, the weaknesses of Arsenal.
So they were the crucial moments towards the end of the game, but let's wind it all the way back to the start, and Arsenal relying on a good old set piece.
Yeah, and they're absolutely brilliant at them. And if you just look at this, we couldn't show this in all of it because of the time constraints at half time. But I just wanted to look at there. There's Kivior. There's the goal scorer with the taker, Odegaard. So you can see everybody's set. So he's gone right over. He knows what the plan is. He's basically telling them, something that we've worked on. I know exactly what I want to do. Look, so just keep an eye on them too. And then just watch the knock-on effect. So look at Kivior run inside now. So if you just look here now, you've got sort of, I think it's Timber here. So as soon as Kivior gives him a message about what he wants him to do, Timber completely changes his position. So initially he's saying, okay, I'm behind the ball. So Kivior comes over. Lewis Skelly goes slightly deeper. He now comes and has a word with Timber. Right, we're all going the back post. And then everybody... sorry, just let me
Let's get in the queue for the bus.
Yeah, so even these people who are actually in those positions, as soon as Kivior comes over, gives the message to Timber, then looks at Trossard as well, and now everybody goes to the back post because there's a plan in place. And then that's what we highlighted at half-time. That, I think there's only Kivior really who's looking to score. I think the rest of them have all got a job to block the opposition.
Stop it there, Jamie, sorry. Just stop it there. If you flip that to the Crystal Palace perspective, because if you just wind it back a bit, there, you're defending your line as a diligent Crystal Palace defender, and then suddenly you've got no one to actually mark. How unusual is that?
Now, this has been going on for a long time, different to this, in that people would already stand there. So I'd be standing here defending a wide free kick. Theo will be there and he'd just stand there. And you're almost fighting. So what I used to do later on in my career, and Van Nistelrooy was the master at it. And he used to do it in general play, actually, Van Nistelrooy a lot. But you'd have to be brave at the last minute. And then at the last minute, you'd have to, I'd almost try and get myself, throw him round that side. But this is different, that they're coming at the last minute. They're not stood there, they're just bumping you. Now, I actually think, what would you do? Because no one can stop this little bump if someone actually goes the other way and plays them offside. So, okay, we're all in our line, they're running from this side. Just before the fellas are out to take it the whole line, you give a little shout, everyone moves 2 yards that way, and then you're trying to maybe catch these offside. Someone's got to try something, because this is what we're watching this season, set piece wise, is absolutely. Listen, it's outstanding. You have to say that for Arsenal.